We can talk about all the things the Orlando Magic need to do, all the different things, all the changes, everything else. It all comes down to two players. How Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner become superstars this season today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is September 21st. It will be September 22nd, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're focused on the two most important players on the team. Why Paolo Banchero is set to be a superstar this year and why Franz Wagner is not too far behind him and what stardom even means. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Be one of our Orlando Magic dailies and listen 5 days a week. We go Monday through Friday from now until the season ends. For the next it's a lot, next like 9 months, we're going to be all in, locked in for the Orlando Magic season. That's why we're Locked On Magic. Checking us out wherever you download podcasts, all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. There are a lot of changes on the Orlando Magic. Just a lot of changes. Desmond Bane is in. Tyus Jones is in. We're expecting the year of growth and all these things. And there is a lot of optimism and hype about this season. I was out at the UCF game. I covered UCF for the Associated Press, talking to some people who do some stuff with the Magic. Everyone asked me about the Magic. And everyone I talked to, whether it's reporters, whether it's reporters for other teams, whether it was fans that I run into, whether it's family members, everybody senses the excitement for this season. And in 1 week, we get to start it all again. Media day next Monday. Training camp starts next Tuesday. We are here for this exciting season. There is a lot of belief and optimism. And a lot of it is born out of the additions the team has made from last year's roster and the players they've added to this group to try and push this team to the next level. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to two players. At the end of the day, yes, Desmond Bane is a huge addition. Tyus Jones is a huge addition. Jalen Suggs coming back is huge. Everybody taking the lessons that they learned from last season, both the successes and failures, is huge. But ultimately, what the Magic did this offseason in trading 4 first-round picks, in getting Desmond Bane, what they did was state their belief in the stardom of their two best players. They sat there and said, we believe Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are not just very good players, which clearly they already are. We believe Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are going to be all NBA level players, perennial all-stars. We are willing to invest this much money, 2 max contracts, going into the tax for the first time in 13 years, preparing and readying to be in the second apron next season, because we believe these two players can lead this franchise to its first championship. And at the end of the day, I hate to say it because I like everyone on the team and I really despise thinking of people as assets, but that's the life in the NBA. At the end of the day, everybody else is expendable. It's all about making Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner's life easier. It's all about finding the right complements to their stardom, to their skills, to their abilities, so that they can be themselves without having to think too much, with trusting their teammates to give them the support that they need to make them the best players they possibly can. We see this in the life cycle of stars. Usually when you're young, specifically like in the middle of that second contract, that first big extension, you're trying to test and stretch the limits of your own stardom. You're trying to say, I got to figure out how good I really am. And so you tend to see that this is when you go for the MVPs and you go for the individual accolades. And, maybe you're trying to do too much. And that's okay. Part of what this season is about is Paolo and Franz learning the right balance, learning what they need to do to be stars, to elevate their team, to put their team in the best position. That's a big, big, big part of what this season is about for the Orlando Magic. How they do that, how they put all those pieces together is the question, is the big issue, is what the Magic are going to have to solve and are going to have to do. Both of these players have already shown us how good they can be. If anything, it was clear that the biggest thing holding the team back was not the stars and their decision-making. It was giving them the tools and the weaponry and the players around them to maximize those skills. And so this year, it's about maximizing Paolo Banchero. It's about seeing how good he can be if you give him a little space. We all know from watching him for the last 3 years that he is a willing passer. He wants to get others involved, just hasn't always had the supporting cast to do so. And so he's fallen into the trap or fallen into the habit or fallen into the necessity of taking the superstar shots, the bad shots. This is a point that I made several times, but part of being a star is learning when to be the superstar and learning when not to be. And so I have no problems with Paolo's inefficiency. That's all part of the process. But what the Magic have done now in adding Desmond Bane and laying down this gauntlet is to say it's time for Paolo to learn when to take over, when to be that guy. It's time for him to learn the finer points of leadership. And it's the same thing with Franz Wagner. It's learning and trying to push Franz to fully explore his talents and fully explore who he can be. And he can be a lot more. He's been very, very good. He can be a lot more. This season is about beginning to understand how to star at a higher level, learning how to be the best version of these already great players. Look, Paolo Banchero is an all-star player. He's a perennial all-star player. The only thing that's going to keep him out of the all-star game is the Magic being worse than expected or an injury like it did last year. Franz Wagner is an all-star. He's going to be an all-star this year. The new format's going to help him out with that. But he would have been an all-star last year if not for his injury. The Magic have not had two all-stars on the same team since 2009 with Dwight, Jameer, and Richard. This is going to be a yearly thing now. Sorry, you don't get to take that Sunday off. We got to talk about the All-Star game. And I'll do my same screed that the All-Star game doesn't matter and people care about too much about it. At least it's in the afternoon this year, so we can knock that thing out early. This season is about defining their stardom. It is about understanding how to take that leadership responsibility, that heavy burden, the scoring burden, the creation burden, the playmaking burden, all of it, and turning it toward winning at a higher level. And look, there are going to be hiccups. There are going to be mistakes. There are going to be moments when Paolo falls back into an old habit, perhaps, takes that contested mid-range when the pass is open. Learning to trust his teammates, which, again, no reason for him not to, but habits die hard, and you got to make mistakes to learn sometimes. Franz is going to have moments when he overshoots, doesn't get to the basket enough. When the Magic need him to do more, and maybe he doesn't quite do it because of at least perceived preference for him to defer to teammates. But this season is about getting through those mistakes. This season is about breaking through. And if the Magic are going to be everything that we imagine they can be, the 3-seed, 50-win team, win a playoff series, get to the conference finals, sneak into the finals, who knows? If the Magic are going to do those things, all the new pieces are great. Don't get me wrong. But it starts with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. And so how do they reach that next level? Well, they've shown they already have and can continue to build on that. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. We all have that problem around 3 o'clock. Lunch is worn off. We got 2 more hours left in our workday, maybe 3 more hours left in our workday. We're trying to power through so that not only can we finish our day at work, but have the energy to do something after work, whether you're going to the gym, whether you're going out with friends. We have a long day. We don't always have the energy to get through it. 5 Hour Energy is the best way to give you that last kick that you need to run through the tape and finish your day strong. It kicks in fast, it's sugar-free, and you don't have to worry about crashing later. So enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store and online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. We've talked a lot about Paolo Banchero. We have. Us Magic fans are the fiercest defenders, which is how it goes. You defend the guys on your team. In a world that has tried to minimize his stardom and minimize his stats and denigrate him and say, oh, he's not all of that. He's not everything that everybody imagines him to be. Paolo Banchero, frankly, has already beaten those odds, has already beaten those things, and beaten that rap. In the Locked On NBA Top 100, we went over this a few weeks ago, but we're going to pull up the graphic anyway because I still have them in my system. Paolo Banchero came in at number 23. A fair assessment, in my opinion. Maybe a little low, but a fair assessment, putting him with players like Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam, James Harden, Trae Young, Darius Garland, clear stars who have some questions about them. But really, the only question about Paolo Banchero is about his youth. It's only the fact that he hasn't done it or hasn't won the big one to get everybody's attention. The fact of the matter is, if you're concerned about Paolo Banchero's efficiency, you haven't been watching, or you're just looking at the big picture, or you're looking at the full season stats, which take into account the injuries that he had. Now, I'm not going to pretend otherwise. We got smaller samples here. Paolo Banchero was bad for the first 4 to 5 weeks after he came back from his injury. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. He was not good. He was out of shape, and it showed. But in the 24 games, that is about a quarter of a season after the All-Star break, Banchero averaged 29 points per game with shooting splits of 47.3, 33.3 from 3, and 78.3 from the foul line. You know he's getting a line 8, 9, 10 attempts per game. He had a 58.1 shooting percentage, which put him in the top 10 among players with usage rate greater than 30% after the break last year. If you include his numbers from before his injury, they're right in line with the same deal. He was making threes. He was scoring efficiently. He had the 50-point game. He was averaging nearly 30 points per game. Paolo Banchero has consistently proven himself, at least through the end of last season, that he has taken this leap in efficiency. I frankly I get the efficiency concerns and I get the plus minus concerns. We can debate those a little bit, but honestly, even after the All-Star break, yeah, Franz still beats him in plus minus because Franz is playing with the bench groups. The Magic still had like a +4 net rating with Paolo Banchero on the floor last season after the All-Star break. Again, let's throw out the games when he was clearly out of shape and clearly still getting into rhythm after the injury. The point is, and I made this repeatedly, the point is Paolo Banchero has already taken a superstar leap. And very, very few people around the league are treating him like the superstar that he is. The NBA certainly isn't. Even for a number one pick who's an all-star in his second season in the league, is putting up numbers at his age that we've only seen from LeBron and Luka, there is zero hype around him. And frankly, it's astonishing, especially considering he averaged 29.4 points per game in the playoffs against Boston, which he got a lot of respect for, I would say. The national media was very much like, no, like Paolo's a playoff performer. He's built for the postseason. Let's just get him deeper. And I get it. Like, again, some of this is Paolo just has to prove it on a bigger stage. If Paolo were drafted by New York or Los Angeles or one of the bigger markets, everyone would be buzzing about him. He isn't some unique freak like Victor Wembanyama. And again, Victor deserves it. He's a very good player. Cade Cunningham last year made All-NBA, something Paolo hasn't done. Paolo's going to make All-NBA this season, and all those accolades are going to come. But that's not the point. That's not what Paolo plays for. That's not what the Magic are playing for. And ultimately, success is going to be determined by how he pushes his team to the next level. I'm sure I've talked about this, but I'll make this point again. Paolo Banchero is a willing passer. He averaged 5 assists per game in 2024. He was around 4.5 or so last year. At a certain point last year, the shooting was just so bad. It was so bad that you could tell he wasn't trusting and wasn't moving the ball to open shooters and taking contested mid-range, taking those superstar shots because he felt they were better. And look, I would assume the numbers say that's not the case, that it's perception over reality. But I would also bet they're a lot closer than you think. And so the addition of Desmond Bane, which if you watch Paolo Banchero's little mini documentary series that he's putting out, in the first episode, he filmed his reaction to the Desmond Bane trade. You can already see him miming passes to the corner and passes to Desmond Bane. He is excited to have a shooter of that caliber on his team. But this is going to be the trick for Paolo. This is going to be the test. Does he know when it's time to take over? Does he know when the team needs a superstar shot? We're all kids. I'm not calling Paolo, I am calling Paolo a kid, but we're all like all these players, all these like NBA players that we saw, they were like us one time, just shooting hoops on the driveway. Trusting out and trying those fadeaway jumpers. Like I know I tried T-Mac fadeaways all the time when I was growing up. I cannot hit T-Mac fadeaways, although I got decent fadeaway jumper. Do I have the footwork to pull it out in a game? No, but I can hit it. We were all those players once. Excuse me. We were all those players once. And when you are that player in the NBA, sometimes you think, I got to take the hero shot. I got to take the Kobe shot. I was playing 2K the other day, and I joked that someone gave me a Kobe assist. Sometimes you gotta know when to take those shots and when to do those things. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge ahead for Paolo. Is yes, he can hit those tough shots. He is a tough shot maker, and every team needs a tough shot maker. I don't care if it drains his efficiency a little bit. The Magic are going to need a tough shot at some point, and Paolo Banchero is a guy I trust to make it. Every team needs a tough shot maker. But it's knowing when to take those shots, when to settle for those shots, or when it's time to move the ball. That's going to be the challenge. And considering Paolo should have a lot more space to operate this year, making the right decisions becomes even more paramount. Because now, last year, a Paolo shot might have been the best shot every possession. Now that's not going to be the case. And it's going to be on Paolo Banchero to make those choices and make those decisions. It is on him to be the leader of this offense. And if he is able to do that, That's what's going to propel the Magic to be even better. That's the secret the Magic need to know. Paolo Banchero could easily average 30 points per game. The Magic probably don't need him to, especially if they want to be their most successful. And figuring that part out, or figuring out that right formula, that's going to determine the Magic's success or failure as much as anything. Because they need Paolo Banchero to be at his best. They also need Franz Wagner at his best. How Franz reaches his next level, we'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Most people cannot name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets can be complicated, trust me. Maximize investments, increase your savings rates, easily review finances with your partner or financial advisor, and keep a clear view of your financial health with week-to-week and long-term reports. That's what Monarch Money gives you. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. Franz Wagner has his own set of issues. What I really love about Paolo and Franz is they do complement each other well. Paolo is a battering ram. He is a main driver. He is a main scorer. And Franz is very happy to play off the ball. And Franz is very successful playing off the ball as a cutter, as a secondary ball handler, as a willing shooter. We could talk about the three-point shooting percentages another day. The question then has always been, how do the Magic get the most out of Franz Wagner? Because at the end of the day, the Magic do have this issue where they have two very similar players. You could do some interesting things with Paolo and Franz, as Zach Lowe mentioned on the Zach Lowe show last week. You can run some split actions for them. It's hard to run pick and rolls involving both of them because a lot of teams can just switch that. So you run some split actions, but it's really hard to use them together and put the defense in a bind, having to deal with both of them. Individually, they are tough as nails. Jalen Suggs is going to be setting screens. Desmond Bane is going to be setting screens. They're both such excellent shooters that the Magic will be able to put defenses in some tricky spots. Franz is such a smart player. When he's off the ball, he's going to put teams in tricky spots. You still have to pay attention to him, even if he's not a huge three-point threat. But ultimately, what a lot of us want to see is Paolo become a little bit more like Franz and learn how to play in the background a little bit better. And for Franz to become a little bit more like Paolo, to attack, to be a lead player just a little bit more. Now, Franz has done that a little bit. I don't think it's natural to him. I think teams have to kind of force him and push him into it. But Franz has certainly done that to some extent. Last year, obviously, he had this stellar season. Stellar season last year, 24.2 points per game. During the 20 games he played between Banchero's injury and his own injury, Wagner averaged 26.1 points per game, still shot 45.7% from the floor. In the playoffs, he averaged 25.8 points per game and again, had a 32-point game, including the 2 game-winning baskets in Game 3. Franz Wagner has taken a leap. And yes, the three-point shot is improved. I do think it's better. I think we will see it improve. It's going to be streaky, though. I don't think it's going to be perfect, but the Magic don't need Franz to take 6 threes anymore. You know, if he's averaging 3 or 4 per game, that's probably enough. And he can make 1 of 3 or 1 of 4 and still be okay for the most part. With an occasional 2 for 3, occasional 2 for 5 game, like again, it's an average. Franz Wagner's next level, though, is very similar to Paolo's. It's knowing when to take over. and how to be that version of himself, to be the one that's the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak. Both the Magic and the German national team have tried to get Franz, have kind of tried to nudge Franz in that direction. Obviously, last year, the Magic had to do that with Paolo out. But the German national team put the ball in Franz's hands a whole lot more this year. He ran a lot of point guard. He ran a lot of plays where he was directing traffic and initiating action. And look, Franz isn't going to hold the ball, and he over dribbles a little bit, but he isn't going to hold the ball. He's going to be in constant motion, trying to create leverage to get downhill. He is unstoppable when he has the wind behind his sails, getting to the basket. Plain and simple. He is unstoppable. But what the Magic need to see is for him to know when to move the ball and when to take over, when to be that driving force. And look, again, I don't think there's any jealousy, or I don't think there's going to be any issues. If Paolo or Franz sense one of them has it going, they're going to feed him the rock. If they sense Desmond Bane has it going, they're going to feed him the rock. The Magic will not care who leads them in scoring. Obviously, like, Paolo and Franz are going to lead the Magic in scoring probably 7 out of every 10 nights. One of those two. And there might be a game where Des is the guy. There might be a game when Jalen's the guy. But Franz's next level is very similar. It's about decision making. It's about knowing when to take over, when to fade in the background, and keeping yourself involved and keeping yourself in the game. I mentioned this last week, and again, to my German national team fans, very happy for Germany. They got the job done. No one's complaining. But the Magic's interest and the German national team's interest diverged in that championship game. Magic fans certainly wanted to see Franz be more involved in that second half. Scored only 2 points, was 1 for 2 from the floor, was just frankly not involved, barely touched the ball. And again, Dennis Schroeder won them that tournament. No one's going to complain. Winning is the only thing that matters. If Franz averages 10 points per game and the Magic win the championship, that might be a bad use of your salary cap, but that's fine. We'll live with it. We'll live with that. The ring is the most important thing. But second halves like that cannot happen with the Magic. For the most part, mostly. You're not going to win a lot of games if Franz isn't one of the key characters, isn't one of the key players. And that is going to remain one of the bigger challenges for the Magic this season. That is going to be one of the things the Magic need to see from Franz. He cannot disappear. He always has to have his fingerprints on the game in some way or fashion. And look, he's going to do that on defense. He's going to do that in other ways. Franz isn't one to take tough shots and take those hero shots. But at some point in some time, the Magic are going to need that. And that is Franz's next level. It's not the shooting. It's not anything else. It's the decision-making and the leadership to understand this is what my team needs from me. And I can't be the one to take any nights off or struggle in any way. For both Paolo and Franz, this season is about decision-making. So much is still on their shoulders. As much as Desmond Bane and Jalen Suggs and all these players are going to take things off their shoulders, so much is still on them. This whole project, this whole team only works if Paolo and Franz are the best versions of themselves, and the best versions of themselves bring everybody along with them. And that means sometimes one of them is going to score 35 points. And sometimes that means one of them is going to face all those double teams and have to make the right decisions out of those double teams. Because at the end of the day, the Magic are going to rise and fall on those decisions, on how Paolo and Franz are playing. Because yes, Desmond and Jalen and some of the other players, they can create for themselves. They will have the help. But at the end of the day, every game is going to come down to Paolo and Franz and what they do. And this season is very much about the Magic getting the most of those decisions and seeing them mature and grow as leaders to make not only good decisions with the opportunity they have, but bring everyone with them to the finish line. This season is about Paolo and Franz growing up and maturing. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You can find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the Film download podcasts to your podcast enablers device. You can find us on YouTube as well. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to Locked On Magic, be sure to go check out our Locked On NBA Top 100. It's here. I put the graphic up earlier, voted on by the NBA hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. You can check out my reaction to it. It's 2 weeks ago. Did an episode with Kuka Heel of Locked On Pistons to talk about Paolo Banchero and Keith Cunningham. Then I did an episode breaking down where the Magic are on the list. Showed the graphic today, so I guess today counts as part of my coverage of the Locked On NBA Top 100. Find it all on Locked On NBA as well, wherever you download podcasts. But that's good, dude, for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We're going to be back tomorrow, continuing our countdown to camp. We're going to talk about, I think we only have 3 remaining players. We're going to talk about at least 2 players who have a lot to prove, a lot that they need to prove this year. Why everything is on the line for Jonathan Isaac. We'll get to that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.